Good afternoon. My name is Ben Weisenberger. I'm an application engineer with Allied PLM Solutions. I want to welcome you to the Allied PLM LunchByte series. Today's topic, we'll be taking a look at rendering with KeyShot. So just a real quick agenda of what we'll cover. We'll just go over the background of KeyShot and what it is. We'll go over the solid edge integration of KeyShot. We'll look at how to render using KeyShot and the update command as well. And then we'll take a quick look at doing an animation inside of KeyShot. So KeyShot, what it is, it's our new rendering engine for Solid Edge ST7. Customers, you're getting KeyShot as part of your Solid Edge Classic. It's not an extra cost add-on, you get it with the software for free. The previous rendering engine, which was Lightworks, has been completely removed from Solid Edge, so you don't have access to it anymore. When a render is invoked for the first time in ST7, you'll get a warning, and it just tells you about that you're going to lose any materials or lighting that you may have created inside of Lightworks. When you install ST7, KeyShot will load as a separate application. We can render simultaneously while we have Solid Edge open, so it'll be open in a separate window, and we can do our renderings inside of there. With KeyShot, we'll make bit files, and we can render then at any time with those bit files and open them back up and make changes to our parts and our renderings if we want. So just a quick excerpt from the KeyShot help documentation. KeyShot is an entirely CPU-based program, so it's designed to use 100% of all CPUs available in our system to deliver the maximum rendering performance. It also works on a near linear scale, so as you double the amount of CPU cores in your system, we'll also be able to nearly double our performance of KeyShot. We can pause real-time rendering to free up those CPU resources while performing tasks then inside of Solid Edge. There's a couple different ways we can do this. We can either click the pause icon inside of KeyShot, or we can do Shift P on the keyboard to pause it. And when we do this, it'll completely free up all of our CPU resources for other programs. A CPU toolbar was introduced with KeyShot 5, and this helps us to control how much of those system resources and CPU cores we want to use, and how much we want to allocate to KeyShot for our renderings. With the real-time rendering that we have with KeyShot, as soon as you open up a file, it starts to gradually render the model. If you rotate or zoom, or to move your model at all on your screen, it's going to restart the rendering. Just kind of what that looks like is in the bottom of the picture on my slide here. You can see it's sort of pixelated, not very clear. The longer you let the image sit, the clearer the image becomes. So there's no clicking of any render buttons or anything like that. It's all real time, just as you go. Couple different ways that we can invoke our rendering commands. They're in the Tools tab of all modeling environments, and if you're inside the assembly, it's in the ERA environment. These commands are disabled though when you're in place activated into another part or subassembly while you're working in an assembly. So the KeyShot render button, what this does is it exports our model. It'll start the Solid Edge specific version of KeyShot. It'll then render the model inside of KeyShot and establish a link between the two programs. There's a KeyShot update button. This will export any model changes that you've done through this live link. So this includes colors or show hide states. It won't paint over new materials inside of KeyShot though. There's also an options button, and this controls our quality and frame size. KeyShot also provides new libraries for our use. Our materials, there's things such as paints, plastics, and metals. Lighting environments, we've got indoor, outdoor studios, backgrounds. There are a couple default, but we can import JPEG images if we want and use as the background. We can use textures. All these materials may be customized. You can add labels, textures, or patterns to any of the materials. And we also have, as we stated before, the real-time rendering and then camera positioning. We have KeyShot animation. So what this does is it exports the solid edge animations out into KeyShot. This includes our motors, any explosions you've done, if you move parts along a path, if you've created your own cameras and have them rotate around your view or something like that. Also the appearance, so if you have parts vanish and appear, we can have that as well. There's also then an options button that goes along with this, which controls our output size and our quality. The KeyShot animation timeline is similar to what we'll see inside of Solid Edge. So you can see in our top picture here we have our animation created inside of Solid Edge. We've got our explosion and the different timings and movements of all the parts in the explosion. When we export that out into KeyShot, you can see down below in the bottom picture we get those same kind of timelines here showing the different actions and movements of the parts. So KeyShot, it does not support transitioning from one part color to another, but what it does support is transparency transitions. So we can make either a part or a subassembly vanish or appear on our timeline. And I'll show you an example of that. So let's go ahead and get started and get inside a Solid Edge and take a look at KeyShot. So the part we're going to be looking at is the shock box here. So what it is it's a box that holds a shock that you would find in a car or some other kind of vehicle. If you saw my original LunchByte, the original rendering LunchByte, I used this same assembly, so I just kind of want to revisit that and see what we can do with it here inside of KeyShot. So here's our assembly. And again, you see we've got a block here on the bottom. We've got a case that holds this shock in there nicely, and we've got this little wrench in the top. So the first thing we're going to look at is this kind of the wrench up in here. So let's go ahead and open that up. So we've got our part, and we want to send this over into KeyShot and take a look at it inside of KeyShot. So to do that, we can go here to the Tools tab, and here's our KeyShot group. In the top right is the KeyShot options. If we go ahead and select that, we can look at some of our options here. So these are the output size that we're going to send over into KeyShot, what resolution we want. I'm just going to stick with HD. You could go full HD if you wanted to, but again, I'm just going to stick with HD and go ahead and hit OK on this. So now we want to send this over into KeyShot. So to do that, I'm just going to select my KeyShot render button here, and it'll fire up KeyShot and open up this part inside of it. So here's our part inside of KeyShot. So you can see as I move it around, it's kind of grainy, but if I let it sit here for a second, it'll get clearer and clearer. It's easier to see the entire part then. So just some quick things about the KeyShot user interface. Right now I've got both my library tab over here on the left open and my projects tab open here on the right. If you don't see these, you want to open them up, they should always be down here at the bottom. I can simply just click on these to show and hide those menu options. Those are the two most important ones that you're going to use the most to edit your part and make changes to it. Over in the library, we have a couple different tabs along the top. Let me expand it here so we can see them easier. We've got our materials tab with all of our different materials listed below, all different kinds of cloth and leather, metals, liquid paints, plastics, all different kinds of things that are pretty cool. We'll go through here and apply a couple of those in just a minute. We've got colors if you want to come in here and apply some specific colors. We have our different environments, interior, outdoor studios, or different pictures, different studio lighting setups. We'll take a look at applying some of those as well. Backplates, we can import our own JPEGs to do these. So here's just some industrial JPEGs. We'll look at one of those and use those as well. We have a whole list of textures. We can apply these then to all of our materials and use them to change the look and layout of all of our materials that we apply. As you go through all of these, you can save them in your own favorites. So I've got my own custom favorites list here that I'm going to pull from in just a minute. Some materials we're going to use on our other full assembly to apply those to the model. Up at the top here we have the number of cores we're using. Right now I'm still rendering, so if I were to rotate this, you can see it's still going to do that. If I want though, I can pause this with the pause button here, and that pauses the render. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that does for CPU performance on our computer. So I'm going to unpause that, and I'm going to start my task manager. And you see right now with it unpaused, I'm at 100% CPU usage. If I come in here and pause this, the second I pause that, I drop right back down to just a regular amount of CPU usage. Now I've got Solid Edge and some other programs running right now, so mine's a little higher, but normally yours should drop down to around 0. So it's pretty cool how that works. If you need to, you can always limit this. Maybe I'd change this to just 4 cores. And I should be around 50% usage, and again I've got some other things running, so I'm a little higher. So let's go ahead and close out of that. So I'm going to keep mine at all 8 cores, just so we run a little bit quicker. I'm going to pause it for right now. Some other options we have here at the top. There are some camera options, how we rotate and move our views. We have tumble camera, pan camera, and dolly camera. What this is going to do is it's going to control your left click behavior of your mouse. That's how we're going to rotate or move our view. So if I unpause this, I left click and drag on my screen, that's going to rotate my model right now with the tumble camera option selected. If I switch this to the pan option and left click and drag, it's going to move it around my screen and pan that around my screen. If I click the last option, this is my dolly. If I drag up and down, I'm going to zoom in and out. Now the option I suggest being on is the farthest left option, the tumble camera, which is the default. This allows you to left click and drag and rotate the model. If I want to pan the model, I can always click and hold my scroll wheel and move the model around. To zoom in and out, I can simply scroll my scroll wheel and zoom the model in and out. Over here on the right is our project. This is where everything is going to get added that we've applied to the model. You can see the model itself right here. I can right click on this. I have some options to add materials, how I want to look at it, if it's visible or not, if I need to move it around on my screen, and so on. So we'll take a look at those options here in just a minute. I can look at any materials that have been applied to my model. Right now it's just the default material that came in when we imported this. I'm going to do a Shift P to pause this as well. Our environment, we can control how our environment looks right now. We're set up in kind of a studio look here with a couple lights along the top. We can adjust settings here, contrast, brightness, rotation, things like that. Our shadows, if we want to see shadows or not. We have some camera options. We'll look at this, distance and rotation of it. If we're doing perspective or orthographic look, we can do some depth of field effects with our lens. We can change our focus distance to get kind of a blurry background and only be focused on our object. We can turn on some effects. The vignetting is cool. I suggest doing that on your pictures as well, so we'll turn that on here in just a minute. So we're going to be using this project to come in and adjust our settings to our model. So what I want to look at first is the update button. So what I'm going to do is unpause this. I'm going to flip over to Solid Edge. I'm going to apply a material to the model. So what I'm going to do is right click on the material option and Pathfinder, which is new in ST7, and I'm going to apply maybe copper just so we can see the material. So I can see that applied here inside of Solid Edge. When I click the KeyShot updates, it instantly sends that over into KeyShot, and now we can see my new material over here in KeyShot. So it's pretty quick and powerful to do. Let's take a look at changing our model over in Solid Edge. So if I come into Solid Edge and I've got a protrusion here, if I right click on my protrusion and unsuppress this, I can add that geometry in. In this case I've just added our name to the inside there. I want to send this over to my part, so I'm going to do another KeyShot update, and instantly I see that update Let me zoom in on that a little bit so you can see it better. I'll let it sit, and there you can see our name. So it's pretty powerful, sends it right over right away, and we get that link between the part and KeyShot. Alright, we're going to take a look at another part from our shock case. This one I brought into KeyShot already, so what I'm going to do is an import to open it up. I want to open up the BIP file. So I've got my foam base here that I've already created. I'm just going to open that up, and I want to open the file. I could import that and bring it into the same scene as the part I have open if I wanted to, but I just want to close the current scene and open up the new one. I'm just going to discard our changes to that one. And here is that foam base that's inside the part. This contains the shape of the shock so that we can hold it nicely inside of there. And we also have a place for the wrench. So we're just going to make some different changes to the model. We're going to apply a material. I'm also going to show you how we can add a label to the model. So what I want to do is add a material. I've got this in my favorites already. I'm just going to use black velvet. I want this to kind of have that fuzzy look to it. Maybe kind of a foam velvety look. So I'm going to stick with this material. So we've got our material applied. Now I want to add a label to this. So I want to add my logo up here somewhere in the side. So what I'm going to do is go in and adjust the material. So here's our black velvet. We can open this up from over here in our project. I could change the roughness of this, any of the edginess or backscatter here. I can adjust the patterns on it, the bump map, the scale of that bump map, maybe if I want it to be bigger or smaller. But what I want to do is just add a label. So I'm going to come over here to the Labels tab. I'm going to turn on a label. It'll have me browse out and select an image. I'm going to pick LIPLM logo. Now you can see it's a little big right now, so I'm going to move this up towards the top face. I'm going to change my scale. And my scale, I'm going to make something like, I don't know, let's just drag the slider down here to something smaller. So that's pretty good. What I want to do is move it up here to the corner, so I'm just going to click and drag it and bring it over here to the corner. I don't like the angle of it, so in my project menu over here on the right, I can adjust the angle. So I want to rotate this, I want to come back this way. Somewhere in there looks good. If your image came in backwards or anything, you can flip it. If you want to, you could repeat it. This will look kind of like a wallpaper or wrapping paper in this case because it's kind of a box. What we're doing right now is a normal projection, so it's projecting it straight down onto the model. So you see on the edges it looks like it's stretched or kind of just bleeding over the edge. I could change the option, maybe do a box map. Since this is a box, it's going to wrap around it nicely. You see how it goes over the edges as well. So you've got some other options in there, spherical, cylindrical, but I'm just going to stick with the normal projection and turn my repeat off. So I've got my one label up in the side there. We have some label properties. The intensity, that's a little bright, doesn't look very realistic, so I'm going to drag our intensity down just to make that a little darker and blend in with the model some more. I'm going to turn the contrast up just so I have some more contrast in the colors there. And that looks pretty good for now. We can have this two-sided. That would allow you to kind of see the backside of this through if you had a glass part or a gem or something like that. In this case it doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to leave it on. What I want to do then, since I've got that where I want it, is I want to add this to a scene. I'm just going to add kind of a colored background to this. So what I want to do is edit the background on this. So to do that, I'm going to come over into my project and edit the environment. You can see I've got a picture here already, and if I zoom out really far, let me go ahead and do that. You can kind of see what's going on, what this image is. So my part's pretty small in the environment, but you can see it's this image wrapped around a sphere, and if I wanted to, I could rotate this, and this will give me my lights and darks in different locations, so I'll get different reflections on my model. I can change the size of this so it's smaller, gets closer to my model. If you've got a larger model, you might need to increase this. I can move it up and down if I need to. Right now I'm using this lighting environment. I'm going to change it to a color though right now. So I'm going to zoom back in on the model. And I'm just going to adjust this and add a color. And right now it's on white. I want to make this, maybe I want to go blue. Maybe somewhere in here. So I can adjust my brightness of my background up and down if I want to make this brighter or darker. I want to make it just a little darker so the foam block doesn't stand out so much. So I'm just going to turn that brightness down some. I'm still getting the lighting from my scene. So as I rotate it around, I get different shadows and different highlights on my model. I want to stick with something like that. What I want to look at is camera settings here. I've got some options for my distance. This is kind of how far out you're zoomed in and out here. The azimuth is our rotation. So I'm going to stay somewhere around in here. Inclination is our angle, how we're looking at it, straight down or from the side. And I can twist that as well. So that gives me another rotation angle there. I'm just going to stick with this kind of look here. Down towards the bottom we have some lens effects. I want to turn on these effects down here at the bottom. I want to turn on the vignette, and you'll notice if you look at all the corners of the image they get darker and darker. So that just gives some more depth to our image. It's not so plain blue. I'm going to give this a little bit of darkness in the corners. It just adds some character to the image. Once we're done with our image, we can come in and render this. It's easy to do. I can click the render button here. If you don't want to do a full render, you just want a screenshot of this, you can also hit the screenshot button, and it'll tell you it's saved a screenshot down here at the bottom out into my rendering folder. But I want to render this. I'm going to go ahead and hit render. With our rendering options, I have some different preset resolutions. I can go up to full HD. I'm just doing a still image. If you had an animation, we'll look at animations in a minute. There are some quality settings you can come in here and adjust, some shadow options, pixel blur, and so on. We're not going to take a look at those, but I just want to show you that they're there. So what I'm going to choose is just a smaller setting, maybe 800 by 523. I'm going to go ahead and render this. And we'll start rendering it from the center out. And there's our completed image then. And then this gets saved down for you so you can go out, open it up, and take a look at it, which we'll do here in just a minute. So that's how we can render an image. So I'm going to close out of KeyShot, and we're going to take a look at our shot case. I'm going to close out of this part as well. I'm not going to save any changes. So we've got the Shotbox, so we want to send this out to KeyShot. So I'm going to go to the Tools tab and do KeyShot Render. This will open up KeyShot for me and send that assembly out to it. So now we have our shot case inside of KeyShot. Let's go ahead and apply some materials to it and create our image. So again, I've saved these under my favorites, but these are all listed in all of our materials. I pulled out some of my favorites here that I like using on this model. What I want to do to our block at the bottom is make it a marble block. So I'm going to just click and drag, drop it right onto the model, and it renders it for us. Now, it doesn't look like it applied marble, just did a black picture or a black material. We need to edit that material though, because our model is so small, the pattern of the marble is not showing up on our model. But that's easy to take care of. We can just go into our models here, and this is everything that's currently applied to the model. It did pull some things over in from Solid Edge, but I want to look at the black marble here. just double click it, and that'll allow us to edit it up at the top. I want to go edit my textures, and my scale is a little big, so I'm going to adjust that, maybe make it 0.5, and now we can see that marbling on there. All of our veins in here, if we want to adjust the thickness of those, I can drag the slider and make all the veins bigger or smaller. We can add some more kind of noise to the outside of them, and we can also adjust the scale of that noise if we want to make it bigger or smaller. So I'd say somewhere around there. It looks like marble to me. So you got a lot of options to play around with this. There are different colors. You can adjust the colors of the marbling here as well, but I'm just going to stick with this. It looks good to me. We have a gold badge here on the front and some gold hinges, so I'm going to add some 18 karat gold. Drop it right onto those parts. Now we have our gold hinges. Our box is going to be made out of cherry wood, so I've got cherry. I'm just going to bring it over here, drop it onto the bottom part of the box, and I'll drag and drop that on the top as well. There's a rubber gasket going around the inside of the box, so I've got rubber material. I'm going to drag and drop that onto our rubber. We also have our velvet or a foam block on the inside, so I'm going to drop this black velvet on there. Our wrench, I want it to be chrome, so I've got chrome polished. I can drag and drop that as well. Now on our shock, I'm going to zoom in on that. I want to apply some other materials, so we still have the solid edge materials on it. What I like is this anodized material. So back in our material table here, underneath metals, we have anodized. There's a couple different: basic, brushed, or rough. And there's all different kinds of colors in here, and I think these look really cool. So I'm going to apply just a blue anodized material to our shock. I'll apply it to this end as well, and to the nuts. Let that sit for a minute. You can see how that looks, and I really like the look of that. Our spring looks kind of goofy there in that yellow color, so I'm going to add some just some anodized kind of silver color to it, brighten that up some. I also want to add these to the other yellow parts inside of here. And just one more on the inside. So it's really easy to do. Just drag and drop where you want the materials. They all get added over in the project collector over on the right. I could come in and adjust how reflective those parts are or anything like that, which I'm actually going to do here in just a second. So now we've got most of our materials applied. We're going to make some fine edits to them. I don't really like the color of the velvet in here, so I want to adjust that. So we're in my materials. Here's my black velvet. Just double click it to open it up in the project. So if I want to adjust the color of this, we'll come in here and click on the option next to the sheen. And what I want to do is adjust my color. So this is the color that gets reflected back. I want to make that darker, make it more of a black color. And now that looks a little bit better. The other one was a little too gray for me. So that's looking pretty good there. Our cherry wood is a little shiny, so I'm going to go in and adjust that. So I'll just double click on one of our materials. I'm going to lower the refraction index, and that'll be for our lid, so now it's not as shiny. I can adjust the box part itself. I'll just come up here and drag the refraction index down as well, so now they're not as shiny. I could do that for some of the other parts, but I'm just going to move on for now. So I want to apply an environment now. So if I go over to my environment tab, we've got some interior or exterior environments. So I'm going to go to an interior environment for right now. I've got a conference room picture. You can use your own environments if you want. To use this, I'm just going to drag and drop, and that'll bring our part into the environment. Now let me zoom out here. We're a little close up. So our model's a little small. We're kind of out in space, but this is a 3D sphere of our environment, so I can drag around and move the model where I need it. Again, we're pretty small, so I want to adjust the size of my model. To do that, I go back to my Scene tab, click on the model, and go into Position. With the Move tool here, if I click and drag on the yellow box on the inside, I can adjust the size, and now I've got a larger model. I can keep dragging that up. That's a little big. If I want to rotate it, I can grab any one of these toruses on here, rotate it around. I could grab just a singular axis and move it in a certain direction if I wanted to as well. So that doesn't look too bad there. So that's how we can add this into the environment. Some things we can do with the camera. This really allows us to adjust the distance to the camera. Some of our other angles, maybe it's want to straighten it up so it's not so rotated. Maybe look at it from straight on the side or more up above. If we want to change the perspective, we can also do that. We have a perspective option here. If I pull this out, it'll add some more perspective to the model and to the background. Maybe that looks more realistic. So you just see how quickly we kind of threw that in there and we get something that maybe we could work with. What I want to do though is look at a background instead of an environment, and this is just going to be a flat background, so I'm just going to drag and drop this in. And so now we've just got a flat background. It won't move, so if I move my model around, it stays where it's at, and I just move the model around relative to the background. So if I want to maybe make this look like it's over here in the background, we can do that. Let me rotate it a little more, maybe it lines up, kind of get some parallel lines going on. So that's not looking too bad there. Let's go to our environment. We've still got some lighting coming in from our chairs and whatnot. You can see the plants and everything in the background. So I want to change the lighting environment back to some type of a studio environment. So now our lighting looks a little better. I can rotate that, maybe get the light to match up with the light in the room. Maybe if it's a little brighter to match the light in the room or darker, and so on. So you just have to come in and fine-tune everything to make it look more realistic, but something like that doesn't look too bad right there. If I wanted to, I could then render that out. Let's go ahead and do one other thing. What I want to do is just use a color as the background. And what we're going to do is add some ground to this model. So I'm going to go up and go to Edit, Add Geometry, and add a ground plane. So now we have a plane underneath the model that we can apply materials to. So maybe I want to come into miscellaneous and do, let's see, maybe just a matte black color that I want to drop down there. It doesn't look too good, and we need to move our ground down, so that's okay. We'll come in and adjust that in a second. Maybe we want to go in and do some wood. So let's take a look at adding maybe a herringbone pattern. So not bad, a little small, we need some adjustments. So I can quickly move the position of our box, snap it to the ground. Now it's on top of it. Our ground plate, we need to adjust the material. So here's our herringbone. Our pattern's a little small, so I'll just come into the herringbone, adjust the texture. Maybe I want to increase the scale. Now we can start to see that herringbone pattern, not too bad. I can adjust the size of the ground as well, or the scale of it, make it bigger or smaller so that it matches up with our model bigger. But then you could get some kind of a look like this. You could put something out on asphalt if you wanted to. We've got brick as material, all kinds of different stone materials that you could then place this out on and look at it like it's in that normal kind of environment you would use your product in. So that takes care of the Shotbox. It looks pretty good. Let's take a look at adding some light real quick, and then we'll get into animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a part inside of Solid Edge. I'm just going to close out of this for now. I've got a lamp inside of here that I want to open up. So it's just a pretty basic desk lamp. I want to add a light inside of it and see what the light looks like, how we can adjust the color of it, and how it looks in our model. So here's our model. We're going to render that out in KeyShot. So we've got our model. I could apply material to it, but what I'm going to do is just focus on the light. And what I want to do is add some ground to it first, just so we can see a ground plane down here. Maybe I'll throw some bricks or something onto that ground plane. And what I want to do is add lighting to it. So if we expand our lamp model here, go down to my lighting, what I want to do is do a material and add a material to it. And what I'm going to use is some of our light source materials. You can import your own point light IES profiles. I'm just going to use a diffuse light. So I'm just going to select that and hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to make our part actually emit light. And there you can see it there, like there's light coming out of the lamp. Now it's a little bright, so I'm going to come in here and adjust that. You can adjust the power. Right now we're at 100 watts. I can come in here and decrease that. Make our lamp darker. That's a little better. We can also change the color. We're a little bright, a little cool, so we want to get in and maybe do something a little warmer. A little more orange in it. That looks a little better. Go ahead and hit OK and let this sit for a minute. We can see it kind of clear up and render, and you see the nice light coming out of our lamp then. So that's how we can add lighting to our models, maybe headlights or lamps or something else that you work with. The last thing I want to take a look at is animation inside of KeyShot. So I'm going to close out of this model. I'm going to open up a model I have inside of Solid Edge here. And it is a cylinder head assembly. So we've got a couple of cams moving some valves up and down. So here is our assembly. And basically what I did is I went into the ERA environment. I did an exploded view of this, which I'll animate. And then I also had a camera go around it. So what I did is went into my animation editor, and all I did was animate my motor, add a camera path. To add a camera path, I can just come in here, add my camera path. What it's going to do is just rotate around the model. And I also then just added in my explosion and some appearance options. After you set up your animation, which I've already done, we can send that out then to KeyShot. Now I already have this saved out in KeyShot, so I'm just going to open it up real quick for the sake of time. I've got some materials applied. I've opened up the animation down here at the bottom. We can see our assembly and our camera path. If I expanded the assembly, we could see all the explosion events as well. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and unpause this and hit play. We get kind of a live preview of what's going to happen. We're going to rotate around. We have some of our part appearances changed there, so we have see-through. One of our parts comes back for us. We do an explosion of the assembly. This is all while the assembly is in motion, so all of the parts are still moving like they're supposed to. Now it's a little tough to see right now since we are doing a live render while we watch this. So I have saved this out to a video ahead of time. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and just render this out to a video. And let's go ahead and watch that real quick. So here's my video, and we'll go ahead and hit play on this. You can see the parts rotating. They become translucent there. We can see through them. We see our camshafts rotating. The valves are going up and down. We can do our explosion here. We remove all the parts. While they're removed, they're still moving with my motion here. I could have stopped that if I wanted to, but I decided to have them still move after they become exploded. So we'll just watch that one more time. just so you can see kind of what's going on. Everything becomes invisible, our camera is rotating around, part comes back. So this is a really high quality video here. It shows you how our entire assembly comes apart and goes back together. So you can do some really cool stuff with the animation inside of KeyShot here as well. Alright, that's all I had for you guys today. I appreciate your time. If you have any suggestions for future LunchByte topics, please let us know. If you have any questions, you can contact us. If you have any questions on KeyShot or how to do something inside of it, feel free to email or call us, and we'll be happy to help out. Once again, I appreciate your time. Thanks and have a great day.